The sun shone brightly over Vatican City that morning, casting a golden glow over its ancient streets and sacred buildings. The cobblestones seemed to sparkle, and the air was filled with a sense of something special. It was as if even the walls of the Vatican could feel that this day would go down in history. Everything looked the same, yet something felt entirely different. There was a quiet excitement in the air, something holy, something powerful. People moved with quiet respect through St. Peter's Square. Tourists took photos, but even they seemed to pause more often, soaking in the deeper atmosphere around them. Inside the Apostolic Palace, preparations were being finalized. The Sistine Chapel stood in its full glory. The ceiling, painted by Michelangelo, seemed more alive than usual, as if it were preparing to witness yet another page of church history unfold. The frescoes told stories of creation, judgment, and divine love, and today they would witness a moment that would add another layer of meaning to their timeless beauty. Within those sacred walls, the College of Cardinals gathered, each wearing the striking red robes that symbolized their commitment to the Church. They came from every continent, bringing with them the voices of the faithful from every corner of the globe. Though their languages and cultures varied, they were united by one purpose: to serve God and guide His people. The room was filled with an air of sacred seriousness, a mix of honor, humility, and quiet anticipation. They waited, not with impatience, but with a sense of reverence for what was about to happen. It wasn't just another day at the Vatican. It wasn't just another ceremony. This was the day Pope Luis Tagle, the first pontiff from Asia, would address them as the leader of the Catholic Church. And while many had heard of his warmth and simplicity, no one was fully prepared for the impact of what was to come. When the grand doors of the Sistine Chapel slowly opened, a deep silence fell across the room. It was a silence not out of fear, but out of awe, the kind of silence that happens when something sacred enters a space. Pope Tagle stepped into view, dressed in a simple white cassock, without any grandeur or extravagance. There were no elaborate gestures, no dramatic announcements, just a humble man walking into a room with a heart full of purpose. As he walked down the aisle, his eyes met those of the cardinals. There was a gentle smile on his face, calm and filled with peace. He nodded in acknowledgement, his presence speaking more than words ever could. In that moment, it wasn't the robes or the setting that held attention. It was the sincerity in his gaze, the humility in his posture, the quiet strength in his steps. Standing before the altar, he paused. He closed his eyes and said a silent, "Prete." No one knew the exact words he spoke in his heart, but the effect was clear. The room, already filled with solemnity, felt even more still. When he opened his eyes and raised his hands to give a blessing, it was as though light itself had been poured into the chapel. His blessing wasn't just a tradition, it was a moment of unity, of shared purpose, of collective hope. Then he began to speak. His voice was soft yet steady. There was no hint of performance in it. He didn't speak like a man trying to impress a crowd. He spoke like a shepherd addressing his flock. His words weren't filled with complex theology or heavy doctrine. Instead, they were simple but full of meaning. He spoke of love, not as a distant idea, but as a lived reality. He spoke of shared, human experiences, of joys and pains that unite us all. He talked about humility, the kind that allows leaders to listen more than they speak. He talked about compassion, about being present with those who are suffering, about leading not with authority, but with understanding. And then something remarkable happened. As he spoke, a tear welled up in his eye. It wasn't planned, it wasn't rehearsed. It simply happened, honest and real. The tear rolled slowly down his cheek, and in that moment, the grandeur of the Sistine Chapel faded behind the power of pure humanity. That single tear spoke louder than any speech. It showed a man who carried the weight of the world not with pride, but with love. It showed a pope who felt deeply, who allowed himself to be vulnerable in front of the church he now led. And that it opened the hearts of those around him. One by one, the cardinals began to cry. Some tried to hold it in, wiping their eyes discreetly. Others let the tears fall freely, unashamed. These were not tears of sadness. They were tears of connection, tears of a shared burden, tears of gratitude. In that one moment, the centuries of formality and tradition that often define Vatican ceremonies gave way to something even older, even deeper. The truth of human feeling. Outside the chapel, news of the moment spread like wildfire. Images of Pope Tagle's tearful address were shared across the globe. Social media lit up with posts of admiration and support. From Catholics and non-Catholics alike, people were moved by what they saw. The world, tired of masks and distant leaders, saw something real, and it responded. The tear of Pope Tagle became a symbol of something beautiful, the power of vulnerability, the strength found in gentleness. Back in the Philippines, the celebration was unlike anything seen in years. Churches overflowed with people. Special masses were held, streets filled with music and prayer. From the big cities like Manila to the smallest villages in the provinces, the Filipino people rejoiced. They saw in Pope Tagle not just a leader, but a reflection of their own values, humility, faith, love for others. For many, it was a dream come true. A son of the Philippines had risen to the highest seat in the Catholic Church, and he had done it with grace, with kindness, with authenticity. But more than national pride, it was the Pope's message that stuck with people, a message of inclusion, of healing, of facing the world's problems not with fear but with love. Pope Tagle didn't come with promises of power or radical change. He came with open arms, ready to listen, ready to walk with the people, especially those on the margins. His leadership began to inspire movements across the globe. In parishes from Europe to Africa, Asia to the Americas, the spirit of service grew stronger. Outreach programs expanded. People began to ask what they could do to live out the Pope's message in their own lives. Unity marches were organized. Interfaith dialogues became more common. The message was clear. We may be different in many ways, but love is a language we all understand. The impact of that tearful address reached far beyond the church. Politicians, activists, students, and everyday people saw in Pope Tagle a different kind of leader, one who didn't hide behind a mask, one who wasn't afraid to show emotion, one who reminded the world that it's okay to care deeply. Even months after the event, the memory of that day lingered. It was talked about in churches, in schools, in homes. It was remembered as the day when the College of Cardinals didn't just hear a message, they felt it. A day when the leader of the Catholic Church stood not above his people, but with them. A day when tears were not a sign of weakness, but a sign of truth. As Pope Tagle continued his work, those who saw him speak on that day never forgot. His future speeches, though powerful, were always compared to that first one. And yet, he never tried to repeat the moment. He didn't need to, because that one day, that one tear had said enough. It had shown the world what kind of pope he was. A man of faith, a man of compassion, a man of the people. In a world that often feels cold and divided, that moment reminded everyone that warmth still exists, that hope can still rise, that leadership with a heart is not only possible, it's what the world truly needs. And in that sacred chapel, beneath the breathtaking ceiling that has witnessed so many chapters of church history, a new chapter began. One marked not by fanfare or force, but by love. And love, as Pope Tagle reminded, the world is the most powerful force of all.